Me, what have I been
We
up
haven't.
to?
We could we'll just do a chat. We'll just catch up. We haven't seen you for a week because I've been flying to Australia and trying to get over the jet lag and watch the World Cup at strange hours of the day.
I think it's more like, what have you been up to? Because like you're the one that picked up and you like flew halfway across the world to another continent.
Yeah, well, we settled into our Airbnb in Port Stephens, just north of Sydney, to fight off the jet lag. I've been getting up in the morning and going out for a jog, so that's been good. I've been exploring the
Hmm.
area a little bit, jogging around, taking photographs of strange birds and strange plants.
Okay,
Um,
just don't touch any of them. Well, though plants, how harmful can that be? You just don't eat them, I
well, I
guess.
touched some of the birds a few days ago. Did you see the video?
Yeah.
We came across these lorikeets fighting in the middle of the trail, fighting each other, and
Geez,
they
it seemed like you wanted to like break up the fight, but they were
yeah,
having none of it. They were just ignoring
they were
you.
totally ignoring me. So I had to put my hand in and like grab one and throw it away, throw it into
Oh
the air.
no.
This is strange.
That's pretty funny. And apparently you haven't seen any snakes yet on the trail, no?
Well, I sent you a photograph. Did you see the photograph I
Mm,
sent you
I I
of the
did, but
snake?
I think it's just because you weren't wearing your glasses, because I zoomed in on that. It was a hose. It
Yeah, it
was a
was a
garden
garden hose.
hose.
It's a known fact that there are actually no poisonous things in Australia. There are no poisonous insects. There are no snakes. There are no poisonous animals or plants. They're
Are
just
you
all
sure? Because
stories. The
I
stories made up by Australian people to keep everybody out of their country so they have a nice, comfortable, luxurious paradise of a country that nobody else comes to.
Okay, well, I don't know. I read a book and it seemed like
You
the
shouldn't believe
nice
everything that you read.
I thought they said that about the internet. Like you shouldn't believe everything you read on the internet, but
Yeah,
surely books need to be, well researched and stuff before they're published.
look, running books do. Running books do.
Hmm.
Yes,
Okay.
that's
Okay.
definitely true for running books, but the rest of the books, I'm not sure. I guess I should say disclaimer, please fact check everything that we say before getting on a plane to Australia and touching everything that you see when you arrive.
Yeah, and I don't know, just to be on the safe side, if you see a really cute blue octopus, don't touch it.
You're
It's
obsessed
very
about these
poisonous.
octopuses.
Yes, I read about them in a
Octopies.
book. Yeah, I read about them in the book. There's a book that actually it was my mother-in-law that lent it to me. It's called something like The Sunburnt Country, and
Yeah,
it's so the
that's
I
what the
think
Australians call Australia.
yeah, I started reading this book, and I'm telling you, like the first chapter, there were like five things that'll kill you in there. And one of the first ones was these little blue octopus, because apparently what happens is that travelers will think, oh, they're so cute, and they'll touch them, but they're very, very poisonous. And actually, the poison will like go through your skin, and you'll be like pretty much you won't even have time to like go to the hospital, and you'll die because I think it paralyzes you.
Yeah, I wondered what all those dead bodies were that I was walking by in the airport. You're weird that you walk around in that Canada country with all those bears. Like
Hmm.
there's grizzly bears in the same country as that you're living in. I mean, how
I
come you're
get.
still alive?
I guess that's true. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, I'm never coming back to Canada. I mean,
Oh
I'll get eaten
no,
by a bear.
no! But you have to come back.
Oh,
You have
yeah,
a dog.
that's true. I gotta come back for
Hmm.
Killian.
Yeah.
And we've got some training to do.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
much later. That's much later on. At the moment, I'm doing great. I'm avoiding the ice and snow. Although there's no snow. You
Uh,
you were out
I
running
mean,
this morning. It didn't look like there was any snow.
well, there is still some on the grass, but like a lot of it melted because Friday there was a lot of rain,
Okay.
which is yesterday. But I know your Friday was like 2 days ago, so
Yeah, it's Sunday here now, I think.
yeah. And
Yeah,
it's
Sunday.
Saturday over here. But yeah, so it rained a lot, and so it melted a lot of the snow. And the temperatures kind of warmed up, but they didn't warm up like a whole ton. So I guess that kind of helped melt like the streets, except for the portions where there's a little bit of runoff from the grass is, there might be a slippery bit, but no, mostly it's clear, no snow. It kind of all almost disappeared.
I'm disappointed. It needs to be cold and miserable there while I'm not there.
Don't worry, it will be. Since you're gonna stay in Australia for like 8 weeks.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
sure December and January will be plenty miserable, and then you can gloat from over there.
well, it's been nice. It's been nice here so far. I mean, there've been some showers, but it's been warm, and it hasn't showered on me while I've been out. I've been out running every day, but just nice and gentle, taking it easy. So far so good. Haven't found a gym yet. We went to the gym, but it was closed. I think it was just we came at the wrong time. We have found a really nice swimming pool though, so I think we're going to do swimming. That's like an outdoor
Oh,
Olympic-sized
that
pool
sounds
just around the
nice.
corner. That's you can get a really cheap membership for. So we're going to do that, I think.
That sounds fantastic.
And I booked in for my half marathon in Shoal Bay in December.
Mm-hmm. Did you find a running club to
And
run with?
yeah, I had dinner with my friends last night, and they're going to introduce me to the guy from. I could have gone this morning, but I had podcast duties with you.
Oops,
Um,
sorry.
to the local runners who go out early in the morning on Sundays and I think in the evening on Wednesdays. So I'm going to try and join in with them, see what's what. And it's very hilly around here. Just around the corner from where we're staying, found this impressive hill that's on a quiet like back street. So I'm maybe going to do a hill session.
Yeah, I have no pity on you being all by
So
yourself since you
so there
are
I
in the
am.
warm.
What about with you? Anything happening? Any interesting stories?
I went for a run with Margarita on Thursday, and we were the only two, but it's kind of nice because usually I guess I've been running with people that I don't normally run with, and it's been kind of fun because we were like training for so long for the marathon and we were following our own plan, so we
Yeah,
were kind of going with the club sometimes, but
mostly
not
leading
really.
ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, so I ran with Margarita, and it was fun because we had a lot to chat about.
I'll bet. I bet that was a noisy run.
It was. But luckily it was just the two of us. So, and since we were running, then the people that we crossed on the sidewalk, like they wouldn't hear us for very long because then eventually we would be like gone because we were running.
Yeah, and I've been for listeners, I've been doing my strength training, my resilience training with your partner Andre. And now that I'm not there, he seems to be going to the gym every day almost, and he's going to be like some sort of uh,
I know.
Hulk.
He's
He's going to be the Hulk by the time I get back, and I won't be able to train with him because I won't be able to do the exercises that he's doing.
Oh, is that why you were looking for a CrossFit gym in Australia?
Yeah, so I could try and keep up.
Oh, that sounds good. Maybe we should do an intro.
Yeah.
Hi, and welcome to the Running Book Reviews podcast, where we review books written for runners, about runners, and by runners to help you decide if you'd like to read the book for yourself. We also hope that listening to us chat about running can help keep you motivated about your own running or maybe inspire you to try something new. We've had a lot of great episodes in 2022, and we're looking forward to 2023 and see what it has in store. But before we get there, we can't really believe it, but we've actually already read another 10 books. So here we are, and it's time to reflect on what we got out of those 10 books before we move on to 2023.
That would make it 60 books that we've read.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah, and it's amazing to think that like initially when we started the podcast, we thought that maybe we would run out of content. And we were obviously wrong.
Yeah, the reverse is true. I think the more
Yeah.
books you read, the more books you find, and the more books that are getting written. So we've read 60 books, and we've probably got more to read now than we've had to read when we started.
I know.
But that's cool
Of
and
course
fun.
it is. It is fun.
Do we
The
go through the
first
books and just do a little couple of lines on each book and what we've learned? So people who want to go through the summary or just listen to us chat about what we thought, they can get an insight into the book or a nugget of wisdom or information from us.
Or maybe just a reminder, because maybe they read the book too. And we're just reminding them of
Well, that's a good point.
something that might
They'll
be
go,
in it.
oh, yeah, that was cool. I've got that book. I better go and have a look at it, which is also a good thing to do.
So I guess the first one on our list was Breakthrough Women's Running by Neely, Spence, Gracey, and Cindy Kuzma.
Yep. Doesn't seem that long ago that we read that book. That was 10
I
books ago.
know. Yeah, it was 10 books ago, but it doesn't seem that long ago to me either. I feel like we just read it because it's kind of fresh. Maybe it feels so fresh because we've been using it. So like we've been using the dumbbell routine from that book.
Yeah, that was the first thing that I wrote down about the book. I'm still using the dumbbell routine.
Yeah.
The good thing about the exercises, you look at it at the book and go, oh, it's got some exercises in. Oh, there are exercises everywhere. Is that really interesting? But the cool thing was that I think Neely's exercises were focused, and they were like in groups of 5 types, 5 different exercises. So with dumbbells, there was like 5 exercises, and they're very easy to memorize. Like with bands, there were like 5 exercises, and they were easy to memorize. So you can carry it in your head really easy. And we were doing the dumbbell exercises at the gym. Probably the thing that you're going to say about the exercises that's really good about them is Neely gives you permission to do as many or as few as you want.
Yeah, because you can do 1 set, 2 sets, or 3 sets, because she just says 1 to 3 sets. And so it really removes the barrier from
Really
getting it done.
It's really interesting because I would read the book and it would say, you must do 3 sets, and I'll go, no, I just feel like doing 1. And just do 1 and kind of not feel bad about it. But you would feel bad about it, wouldn't you? Because the book says you have to do 3.
Yeah,
So
so I
you
feel like
love
I'm
it that the
cheating.
book gives you permission to do 1 or 2.
I do, yeah.
I would just go, well, so what? I'm just going to do 1. And you would go, oh, I can't. The book said I have to do 3.
Yeah, and I'd be like, oh, now I don't have enough time. I don't have time for 3 sets. Like, what do I do?
Yeah,
I'll just take a different plan.
I'll have to get another book. It shows how different we are in some ways.
I know. So actually the other thing I wrote down, because I was going through my notes and I remembered that when I read this, like I really, really liked this philosophy. And one of the things that they said about training is do more of what you're good at and work weaknesses occasionally. Because you know how, like, as runners, we want to improve and we figure, well, if we're not good at something, we should just like hammer it out on this thing we're not good at. But sometimes the thing you're not good at is also the thing you don't really enjoy. And so that'll kind of suck the fun out of like your running in general if you're just working on your weaknesses all the time. And also because working on your strengths, like you feel good about your workout because you're like, oh, I nailed it. But that's your strength. So you kind of like go into the workout already positive. Then you leave the workout feeling positive and just everything feels positive. So I love that they gave us the permission to just work on the things that we are good at, and then we can just work on the weaknesses sometimes.
Yeah, that's super cool. What I've noticed with some of the exercises though is that when I do the things I'm not very good at, I give myself permission to not be good at it rather than go, oh, I don't like this because I'm not good at it. I go, oh, I'll do this, but I know that I'm not good and it'll be useless. The thing where you've got to hold a weight and balance on one leg and do a little deadlift. I fall over all the time because I'm not very stable. But I just go, well, that's okay. I'll fall over. And then actually I find I've been getting better because, of course, you're not good at it because either you haven't developed a good technique or your muscles aren't developed in that way. And then by doing lots of things that you're good at and some of those things and giving yourself permission to not be good, you actually get better. So that's cool too. One of the things that I remember about the book that's away from the exercises was there's a whole section on running while pregnant, and it's kind of a practical experience guide from Neely because she had 2 babies while she was, I guess, writing this or compiling this information. And she had 2 extremely different pregnancies with 2 extremely different experiences, and they were like personal experiences. So she was able to speak from being an elite runner and also having two different pregnancies. So it's kind of a perfect book if you're thinking about, what do I do for that situation?
Yeah.
And there's lots of other good stuff.
Of course, yeah. But you can get that from our previous episode. That was just completely about this book with Neely and Cindy. So it's fantastic. So I guess we can move on to the next book, which was Running the Orient by Gavin Boyter.
What struck you about this book?
Yeah, I guess I mean the whole book was about spending several months living out of a van and just running, and I just like have this, it just sounds like such a great idea. But of course, van life is not just being free and running every day. There's a lot that went into it. So I guess that was kind of good to read about, because there's also, you don't have running water once there's no more in your tank. So you need to make sure your tank is full, and doing your laundry is often not so easy because you have to wash by hand, and storing things, and just like doing your groceries and not having like a big fridge to put everything in. So it requires a lot more planning for just, daily activities. And
if your van breaks down, it's your only means to get anywhere,
which
especially if
happened.
it's an old van that you've converted because you haven't got very much money. And if 12 packs of wild dogs attack you during the day when you're trying to run across Romania, or was it Bulgaria?
Definitely makes it more difficult. Romania, I think it was Romania that had a lot of dogs.
Probably we should just mention that the title Running the Orient comes from the fact that Gavin ran the route of the Orient Express. I mean, he didn't run on the train lines, but he ran roughly the route of the Orient Express, which goes from
through, was it 7 countries?
Yeah, goes from Paris, I think, and goes eventually to Istanbul, and goes basically through the whole of Europe. One of the things that struck me is that if I go anywhere, and I'm here in Australia at the moment, and when I'm going or getting in the car, I just go, okay, Google, and it just sends me where I need to go and tells me where I'm going wrong. I suddenly realized that Google is not going to help you if you're navigating across Bulgaria, because the little Google Street View cars haven't been down the little tracks in the outskirts of Bulgaria. And Gavin ended up running on roads that gradually deteriorated into nothing, and had like trees growing out of the middle of them because they'd never been used for 50 years or something. And Google's done a satellite scan or something and decided that they're roads.
I was also like surprised how many times he would just decide like he's tired of being on the road, like running on the road because it was flat and boring or whatever. And he would just be like, I'm just going to hop in and go through this trail. And like a lot of those times didn't turn out very well, but he kept doing it over and over and over. It's like, part of me is like, I don't know. He's either adventurous or he's a sucker for punishment. I don't know which one it was.
Yeah, he has the adventure spirit, I think.
I think if I was doing that, I would have stuck to the roads.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention that, because I was out with my wife Melanie yesterday, and we were having a little jog. I was doing like a warm-up jog with Mel, and we were going around the streets, and then there was a trail going off into the bush, and I said, "Oh, let's go in there." And she said, because she was with me, she said, "Oh, okay." And so we got in and said, "Oh, I wonder where that goes. Let's follow it around. It'll probably come out on a street, a few kilometers down." So we ended up on a trail run, and I thought, "Oh, that's quite similar to Gavin. It's a small scale, but it's the mentality, yeah."
Yeah.
And I can imagine running with your fiance, Andre. He's exactly like that.
He is.
If you run with him and you go, "Oh, look, there's a little trail going off to the side. I wonder where that goes." You go, "Oh yeah, let's go. Let's do it." I think Gavin was like that on a sort of mega scale.
Yeah.
he would go, "Oh, I'm running along a road, and look, there's a mountain just off on my left-hand side. Oh, look, there's a trail that goes off. Maybe it goes into that mountain. That would be cool." And off he goes.
Yeah, I
So
guess you
yeah,
guys have the same thought pattern as he does.
yeah, kind of crazy adventure and fun to read and fun to talk to Gavin as well.
Hmm.
Should we move on? We'll never get through all 10
Yeah.
books if we don't. We gotta
Yes,
pick
we
the pace
gotta.
up a little bit here.
Okay, we'll pick the pace up. So the next one was Running Throughout Time by Roger Robinson.
Yeah.
Um, Another great storybook, a little different. So this one was just all the stories that have maybe not been told correctly, or that they weren't told at all. So I guess the biggest thing that struck me, just like, the first thing I think of when I think of this book is just how many different versions of the story of Philippides had. I mean, because, we all hear that the origin of the marathon, it's this guy named Philippides that ran to bring a message to that they conquered the
From
he ran a really long distance, which is the distance of the marathon, and then he
Sparta
died.
to Marathon or something.
Yeah, and it's actually, well, like that story that we all tell ourselves is actually maybe not true. It might have been an exaggeration, so it might be true, but maybe an exaggeration, or there are parts of it that might not have been true. Like even his name might not have been his name. So it's really
Yeah, and
interesting.
Roger
Like,
tells us that according to the research, the fact that he kind of said we are victorious and dropped down dead was just added for dramatic effect, like 100 years after the actual battle. So he actually did the research and put together the what we know for a fact versus what we see reported in different places at different times. And he does this for a
yeah,
whole series of different stories.
yeah, and it's really interesting because I mean, how many versions could there be? But it's not like now where like people don't have things filmed,
No.
whereas now it's like, you have an accident in the street in front of a house. I mean, there's chances are that there's a doorbell camera that caught that accident, and so you can actually like see what happened. But none of that, even just record keeping. Like record keeping has come a long way. Like people didn't really keep records. A lot of information was passed down by word of mouth, and like it's so interesting
Yeah,
how.
or they were reported with cultural bias of the time. We saw that for the women's 800 meters in the 1920s when it was first run,
Mhm.
and they reported that what was it?
That a lot of the women
Almost all of
collapsed
them collapsed,
at the
exhausted.
finish line.
Yeah,
Yeah. But it was like exaggerated because the men collapsed too, but it was okay because they don't have a uterus, so their uterus can't fall out.
yeah, but that
Uh,
reporting at the time created such bad publicity around female running that the women's endurance runs didn't get into the Olympics again for a long, long time.
yeah, until 1960, I think, isn't it? That's when the
Sort of the
800 came
modern
back.
era, almost. Yeah,
Yeah. I feel like that's really not long ago.
yeah. I think the cool thing, like this was the second book that we've had Roger talk to us about. I think the cool thing is that you go, oh, sort of ancient history and researching the dusty libraries and getting out the facts. It sounds terribly dry. And you go, oh, I'm not sure I'm up for that because it sounds a bit boring. When in fact, it's the exact reverse with Roger because he loves storytelling.
Hmm.
And you think, oh, if he's a historian and a journalist, he's going to say, well, this is not true and be sort of holier than thou. And he's the exact reverse. He says, oh, we find that this is not true, but actually it makes a great story, so it's really good. So I need to tell you all about it as well because he makes it into a story. So he's out
Hmm.
researching the early English runners in the old universities, and he's in the library researching, but then he goes out and tries to find the areas that they've run in and do the running and see what it feels like and then report that. Very cool. So
It is. It
Roger
is.
Robinson's books, if they look like historical type books, they actually are full of great stories.
Yeah, they are historical books, but they're really great storybooks as well. Definitely add to the running book realm because they're kind of unique. Like you do have some books that are, about one particular character, like we had the book about Emil Zatopek, but he Roger Robinson just researched a whole bunch of stories, and I can't even imagine like how much time was spent in those libraries looking at, microfiche and stuff. So on we go to the next one, which was
Smile.
Chase That Smile, yep, by Harold Cabrera.
Should probably just summarize what it was about. It was kind of him on his 40th birthday going for endurance challenges and set himself a target of doing 3 things in particular: run a marathon, climb Kilimanjaro, and do an Ironman. And so he talked about how he went about doing that,
which is pretty impressive because one of those things is usually a goal, but he decided to make all 3 of them a goal. The one thing that struck me, other than his willingness to say yes to every experience, is that if you make something a goal, then you'll find a way to achieve it. It's not like, he didn't have a family and didn't have a job. Like he had a full-time job that was flexible, but you still have to put in the hours. And he had a family with young kids, so that's not always easy to find training time. And the training for these events was just massive.
The other thing was he kind of loves to party as well. Doesn't seem to be able to resist, like going for a beer afterwards, or
no, staying up
going
really
out with his
late.
friends, staying out late. So you can add that to his challenges, really.
Yeah. I guess one of the things he does is he doesn't sweat the small stuff, basically. Like one missed training run, one slow interval, or one tough workout. Like they're not gonna make or break the goal. And he really puts that into practice. I mean, I think we all know that, but we can kind of get to us and get to our confidence when we can't.
I mean, one of the things that struck me hard about Harold when we talked with Harold, or Howie as his friends call him, was just his huge positivity.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that's stayed with me in particular was his mantra: life is good, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, which he said was because one thank you is not enough, because life is so good that he had to say thank you 3 times.
But very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And hugely positive and very motivating in terms of a book to read. You might not want to go and climb Kilimanjaro, but just reading about him and how he goes about his stuff. The other ambition that he had for his 40th birthday was to write a book, and of course we were reviewing the book that he wrote. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I guess on the same theme of motivation, the next book was pretty motivating too. Depression Hates a Moving Target by Nita Sweeney. Nita started running, but she started running kind of in the depths of depression. Like she had she had finished university, she had a job, but at the time when she decided to start running, she was not working. Like she could barely get out of bed every day. And she had a dog. And so she decided to start running with her dog. And it was the story of her going out for these runs. The first one was like with a kitchen timer. And she would go interval.
She wasn't a super athlete by any means. She's, an average sort of lady with very, very significant challenges in terms of anxiety and depressive illness. And I think she says in the book that running with her dog kind of saved her life. And I thought, oh, maybe that's a bit of hype. But then when you read the book, it probably did.
Mm-hmm.
The book kind of opens with the sort of phrase, I'll have to paraphrase because I haven't got the book in front of me, but she says something like, my mind was trying to kill me again. So it was quite extreme to begin with, and she gradually got on top of things. And then she's talking to us in a podcast by the end, talking about just one step at a time, one step at a time.
Yeah, I thought this, this was inspiring and probably very relatable to, just anybody, because, she didn't become an Olympian or anything, but she did achieve some big goals. She ended up running a marathon. And by now she's run many marathons and many half marathons and even ultra marathons. But like she started with running with a little kitchen timer to do like interval run walk, and went sort of down the street from her house. And she describes it when she's running with her dog, and her dog like doesn't even have to change his pace, so her run was like pretty much like the same speed as her walk.
No.
Yeah. And but she did it. She then she'd go out a few times a week, and before you know it, she was looking online for groups to get advice from, and she found the penguins, I think they were called, online.
Yes,
And
the sort of back of the packers, basically.
yeah, and she it's really great because it's almost like, she completely was isolated. I mean, she had her husband, but she was, she barely got out of bed every day. And then all of a sudden, because of running, she started to integrate into like a community, even though it was an online community. But that was what she felt was accessible. She didn't feel intimidated by that, because they were all beginners. Like,
and you see
and then she
the positive aspects of social media then.
exactly, and they encouraged her and they encouraged each other. And later, she ended up joining a real group. So it just her progress was impressive.
I thought it was incredibly brave that she would just even write the book. Although she's a writer, she used writing as part of her sort of therapy as well. But in particular, brave to write this book because she had to talk about herself and her situation, and open up on her difficulties. And for somebody who, and most people are probably thinking, well, I don't have that problem, so why would I read about it? It's extremely motivating, and it gives you a different level of understanding about what some people have to go through. If you don't identify with depressive illness, if you read Nita talking about her efforts to try to run and have to cross a bridge and get to the bridge, and it was symbolic in a way because it was a bridge, but she describes her thoughts of what goes through her head about, how am I going to run across a bridge? It's going to fall down, or I'm going to have trouble.
Yeah, she had all kinds of
what goes through her
fears.
mind. Suddenly you go,
Yeah.
wow, some people, you just don't understand the struggles they're going through sometimes.
So
but that shows the power of running, and it shows the power of having a dog.
Both good things.
So you don't have a dog, Liz, so I'm going to lend you a dog.
Thanks. You're the best. What are teammates for, right?
Moving on.
Moving
I guess I
on.
should probably mention it. Having said I'm going to lend you a dog, you're going to look after our dog for a little while over Christmas. So thanks for that.
Yeah, it'll be
Public
fun.
thanks.
I guess those
on.
mean more than the private thanks, or okay. The public thanks, they mean more than the private ones.
No, they're just the same.
Oh, okay. Okay, next one was On Pace by Matt Fitzgerald. A whole entire book about pacing. And before you say like there is no way I can read a whole book about pacing, yes you can. Because there are a lot more aspects to it than you think.
And I guess we didn't cover many training books in this cycle. In this, we've been talking and we haven't come across, run a marathon training book, or like Jack Daniels, or Hanson's program or advanced
Yeah.
marathoning. We haven't really got one of those, other than probably this is the nearest thing.
Yeah. There are some training plans in it at the end.
There are.
But yeah. I feel like you almost have to read the book to convince yourself to do the training plans, because they're by perceived effort, which, most of us like to run by pace, instead of running.
Yeah,
I need to run tempo pace.
You want to know that my clock is telling me that I'm running at 5-minute pace or 6-minute pace or
Exactly.
7-minute pace. This program says you should be running at relative effort 3 or relative effort 4. So you have to learn what that means and how to teach yourself to understand what that means.
But the book actually is really good at explaining why it's important. There's one quote that I had written down when I was reading, and I'll read it to you. The true limiter of endurance performance is a feeling. So it's like, that's what pacing is. It's just like, because for sure the race is going to hurt at some point, but I guess like you need to come as close as you can to a level of hurt that you can tolerate until the end of your race. That's what the book kind of aims to, I guess, teach you. And Matt he breaks it all down and the science, and he also tells us that most of us are pretty bad at pacing, because he compares us to some of the elite runners that are just like magnificent pacers. You can tell them like, oh, I want to run a 4-minute per kilometer, and they can just go out, no GPS, 4 minutes per kilometer.
And some of them are naturals, but most of them are good at it because they've practiced it a lot. So Matt talks about how to practice it and how to improve your skill from that point of view. And if you're not motivated to improve your pacing skill, he encourages you by telling you that basically there's free performance. Because if you're good at pacing, you get more performance out of the same amount of effort.
Mm-hmm. And you get the maximum performance out of yourself on that day, because for sure sometimes you don't get, even if you register for like the Toronto Marathon, which is like supposed to be flat mostly, well, sometimes during the marathon you discover that those hills are a lot hillier than you remember them being.
Yeah, I think I described it as somebody sneaked in the middle of the night and built some hills into the because when you're tired, the hills get bigger.
Mm-hmm. They definitely do. So I guess on the in the same vein as endurance performance by pacing, we have the next book.
Endurance by Alex Hutchinson.
Yeah, which is all about endurance. And he goes into a lot of science about endurance. But I guess the thing that stood out to me that I had written down in my notes was that the study of endurance started at Harvard University in the business department, because they thought that by studying the athletes, they could find ways to get workers to do more work.
Get more work out of workers, yeah.
Yeah, so that's that's pretty interesting. Like, I had no idea. And I mean, I guess, okay, the motivation was maybe, not the best motivation, but hey, it got scientists to start studying endurance, and we benefit from that. So
yeah, from my point of view, I think it was good to get the background science and the background stories about, where did the idea of VO2 max come from? And, where does, how did they find out what lactate threshold was? And things that you hear bandied around once you get into running. You go, okay, what is that exactly? And how did they come up with that as an idea? And why is it important? So those kind of things it's pretty good. Well, it's probably the best background you could possibly get in terms of historical scientific research.
it is, and he follows that up by also telling us that the physiological measurements don't always predict the winner, which just puts a whole other spin on it.
That was a big take-home message for me from this book, which was the sort of brain effects, and the science suggests that your brain, when it gets a lack of sugar, switches off your legs before your legs have used up all their muscular ability to generate. So it becomes an exercise of willpower to some extent. There's obviously a limit to where you can go with that, but if you accept that, then there's an aspect which is when you finish and you go, okay, I couldn't have done any more. Probably you could. It's just that your own brain has tricked you. And in fact, this was a big factor for me towards the end of the 3-hour marathon attempt at Toronto, where I was switching to mantras at the end to try to psych myself to keep going because I was fading. And one of the things I was focusing on was Alex Hutchinson's endurance book. And one of my mantras was, your brain is tricking you. Ignore. That was kind of one of my mantras. Your brain is tricking you. Ignore it. The energy is there. You just can't feel it, and your brain is fooling you, which is quite a hard. I find it to be quite a hard message. It sort of implies that you kind of feel that you're mentally not strong enough.
Yeah.
What's your problem?
You're like, that can't be.
You got no willpower. But knowing that, it helps you to force yourself along a little bit.
Yeah, I think knowing that is good, because sometimes you can just squeeze out that little bit more, like you did, and just make sure that you get that 11 seconds under your goal. So
there you go. Maybe just reading that book enabled me to bring the mental effort at the end that won me those 11 seconds. It got me 11 seconds under the 3 hours.
So the next
book is that's going to get me the next.
Next time you want more like 2 minutes so that you can kind of cruise in and like wave at the spectators and have fun. And
it's super not fun having only 11 seconds to spare. It's very not fun. I was panicking a lot over the last few kilometers.
So speaking of fast running, should we get on to the next one?
Catch Me If You Can by Filbert Bayi.
So this one is about Filbert Bayi's life. He was a great runner in the 70s and a little bit beyond too. But he was also a great human being, and he did a lot of good things in his home country of Tanzania, even after he hung up his running shoes. So
yeah, I guess for me it was a privilege to talk with Filbert Bayi because he's, when I was a kid watching for the first time sort of 1500-meter running, the first real memories I have is Filbert Bayi running against John Walker. They were like the big rivals of the time for the 1500 meters. So it was like I was talking to one of my childhood heroes to some extent.
yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. But Filbert basically redefined the 1500 meters in the 1970s because everybody was running in a format which was sort of sit and kick. So you sit for 3 laps, and then the fastest sprinter on the last lap wins. And he came along and he said, "Oh, I'm not doing that. I get jostled too much if I do that. And that's not my force. So I'm going to run hard from the front." And I think people to begin with thought, "Who is this young kid? He's got no running craft." But then they realized that actually he has a fantastic motor and he can go out quick and just keep going. And even if they catch him up, he can kick on, which shocked everybody as well. So he started just running fast from the beginning, which meant everybody had to learn to do that a little bit and go with him. So everybody's times, then he sort of taken everyone else to a new level of performance because everybody had to chase him. So he became like, they didn't have pacers at the time, but he became a de facto pacer for world record attempts all the time.
And in
suddenly
one race, he actually brought like several other runners to world records. They had all broken world records. I think the top what was it? The top 5 or something had broken the world record, but obviously there's only one new record. So
yeah, there were 2 famous races: the Commonwealth Games of 1974 and the Dream Mile, held in Jamaica in 1975, where Filbert Bayi broke the 1500 meters record at the Commonwealth Games, the world record. And I think the 2 people behind him also broke the old world record. So it was fastest 1500 meters ever at that time. And then he went on the next year and did this sort of same thing with the mile,
which is super impressive. I think the thing that struck me the most was that it was, Filbert ran, but it was the army that saw his potential as a runner and that kind of gave him the opportunity, because he was, allowed to train in the army. They gave him his first pair of spikes. I guess they let him compete, and had those things not aligned, I mean, maybe he would never have been a runner at all.
Yeah.
And he's like one of the legends. And I guess it just goes to show you that sometimes, it's about the potential other people see in you, not necessarily the potential you see in yourself, that ends up making you do great things.
I guess in all these stories about people, there are crossroads. And in fact, in all our stories, if we think about it, there are crossroads. You can reflect on your life and say, if for some strange reason I'd gone left, I went straight ahead, and if I'd gone left or right, I'd be in an entirely different place in my life now. And you see that very clearly with the army and Filbert. The other thing was, he should be the gold medal winner in the 1976 Montreal Olympics. He was at the height of his powers. He'd probably broken the world record in that 1500 meters race, but he didn't run because 26 countries in Africa boycotted because of the apartheid situation in South Africa. So that was kind of sad, but he was pretty philosophical about that. He said that, sometimes, political situation for your country is more important. There are some things that are more important than individual glory. We kind of shrugged that off a little bit. And it was fantastic to also hear his story after running, in terms of developing schools in Tanzania that didn't exist at the time, that stopped people having to send their kids to Kenya to get educated away from their families. That was
that's
neat.
amazing. And those schools are doing really well, and he's still working.
Yeah, he's
fantastic.
He's really busy doing administrative work for sports boards and various denominations. Good story.
And still trying to do more things, like, he set up a fund for kids to be able to pursue athletics in the US on scholarship, and now he wants to build a modern track, which would be another source of opportunity for athletes in Tanzania. So he just keeps on going.
And as he said, if you go and buy his book, you're contributing some money to those things.
That's right. So next book, Running with the Kenyans by Adharanand Finn. So this was Adharanand's first book. We reviewed his third book. So we just have one that was in the middle that we need to read.
Oh, we'll do that in the next cycle, maybe. Mind you, the next cycle's probably full already.
I think so. Got quite a few in the pipeline. So I guess the one thing, the title of the book, on the book title, it says Running with the Kenyans, and then something about a quest to figure out what all their secrets are.
Secrets of the fastest people on earth.
Exactly. And then you're reading the book, and I remember going on Goodreads, which is an app where you can go and see people's book reviews before you read the book, and people can like recommend books and stuff.
Yes.
So so I was on Goodreads, and I remember reading a comment being like, he never told us what all the secrets were. And it's true that he didn't put it into like a list at the end, whereas
where that's what we should do, Liz. we'll list out all the secrets for everybody, and then they can decide for themselves.
Yeah, but
So
there were some.
what did you discover? What are all the secrets of Kenya running? Yeah, you didn't list them out, and there's no one hard secret, but
Yeah,
what are they all?
they're actually all things that we kind of know already, but they actually put them into practice. So things like just like lifestyle. So first of all, I guess it's their upbringing. I mean, they're brought up just very active children
Yeah,
doing,
they have running at
yes,
an
they
early age of their development. They have running.
yeah. But they use it as transportation, so it's not like stress like if you were focusing on a sport, because we know that that's not good for children, like early specialization. But this is
Yeah,
not specialization, it's just because that's their life and they have to run to get places faster because they have no other way to get there, and walking is really long, so they end
yeah,
up
the only
running to
stress is being
school.
late for school. Yeah.
Exactly.
So they're building
um
without the race stress or the sports performance stress, the kids are building a huge aerobic base
mhm.
from an early age.
Yeah. And I mean, they're in E10, which is where Adharanand was, they're at altitude. So I guess, they're
Yeah,
altitude
a
adapted.
factor.
But I don't know if, like you could probably find stories of great runners from countries that are not at altitude. But that is one of the things that contributes to success.
Yeah, and
Uh,
there's a lot of kids doing this running as well
mhm.
from an early age. They have a big pool of talent, so to
Competition.
speak. They have a big
Yeah.
pool of talent to draw upon.
Hmm.
It's like, well, Canadians produce some good ice hockey players. Why? Because all the kids play ice hockey.
Yeah.
They have this
Because
huge
we have the
talent pool.
facilities, we
Yeah,
funnel them through the
they have this
system,
huge
and
talent pool. Kenya don't
yeah.
have so many good ice hockey players, but they have lots and lots of runners, and they have this massive pool from which to draw on the best of the best of the best.
Yeah, I think also part of it is that it's very much like a noble pursuit to
Yep.
want to be an athlete. So like Kenyan parents will support their kids, kind of like you support your kids here in North America if they're gonna, go to school.
If they say, "Oh, I
Um,
want to be a lawyer," you go, "Oh, that's good," and
yeah.
let me help you with your school fees or whatever.
Yeah, so
Um,
the
but
Kenyan
if there's
parents do but the same thing, but with
yeah,
running. So if their son or daughter wants to be a runner, they're gonna try and help them if they can, like paying rent in E10. And some of the stories that like the story of Beatrice, I think that was the case. It was she was in E10 to train, but she didn't, like, her family didn't live there, so her mom, I think, was paying part of her rent so that she could stay
yeah,
there. Yeah.
and running is a legitimate route out of what could be a fairly poor lifestyle into a comfortable situation financially for someone in Kenya.
Hmm.
Oh, the other thing is
Um,
running camps. They have running
yes.
camps there, so
Yeah.
they'll go into camps, and they're quite devoted. So it's
Hmm.
not, well, I do my normal stuff and then I do a bit of running on the side. When they get serious, they go into camps where everybody's running and running is the only focus, and everything centers around running.
Yeah. And then, like, in between, well, you're trying to recover, so you're not just kind of squeezing your run in between all your other chores. What you're doing is you're
Yeah,
running, and then your chore is to recover from that run because you're going to have another one in a few hours. And when you look at some of the YouTube documentaries of Eliud Kipchoge, who's like broken the world record in the marathon numerous times, I mean, he's got a wife and kids, and he has a home, and they have land to take care of. But when he's training for a marathon, like when he's off, yes, he goes home. When he's training for a marathon, he stays at the camp and he
yeah,
focuses. And like, we say, there's probably genetics, but I mean, yeah, maybe he's got some good genetics. I'm not discounting that, but I don't know. Like, I think there's a lot to be said for all of these other things that they're doing. I don't think it's just their genetics. It's just probably that, that they're all pooled in this one area of the world, but it's because the circumstances are right.
I suspect there are probably more people with great genetics in the Western world who maybe never get to be runners because they probably never tried from an early age and never had the development that we see countless
Yeah.
Kenyans have.
I think another fantastic trait that Adharanand talks about is how they all believe that their next breakthrough is just around the corner. Like they can have the crummiest workout where they only do half of it before giving up and hopping on the bus. But they still believe, like, they come out the next day and they're like, yeah, I think today's going to be the day.
Yeah, they seem to have an unbreakable positivity. Diet as well. They seem to have a pretty good runner's diet.
Yeah, very high in carbohydrates. I think like 75% carbohydrates, because they eat a lot of this ugali, like porridge made out of a maize flour, and it's very high in carbohydrates. And we know from some of the other books that that's the key to endurance. Nutrition is having enough carbohydrates, because that's the fuel you're going to use if you're running fast.
So we probably missed a few things, but there you go. We've covered a lot of the secrets of the.
So we made a list.
And,
the list that does not exist in Adharanand's book. There it is.
Yeah. The other aspect of Adharanand's book, apart from the Kenyans and their running skills, etc., was there was a whole other aspect to the book, which was him moving with his wife and small children into a country and culture that was completely foreign and different, and how he was able to cope with that, basically. And he had doubts whether he'd done the right thing by his family, and whether he's being selfish, and whether it was really working for him to improve, and whether he was developing an understanding.
And it all kind of worked out.
Seemed to. And then he went off, I guess, in his second book, he goes off to Japan to look at their running culture. So
we'll have to see if he moves his whole family again. Although his wife seems like the adventurous type, so she probably wouldn't mind that.
Probably what we should say is, if Adharanand's listening, we're happy to cover your second book, because we love your books, The Way of the Runner, with the Japanese, but you have to come on the podcast to talk to us about it, because when we were trying to contact him, he was busy making his own podcast with Eliud Kipchoge and organizing his weekends running in Dartmoor, so he wasn't able to come on our podcast. So we'll cover your third book, Adharanand, but you got to come on the podcast.
Yeah, and well, on a positive note, like if you're looking for more podcast episodes to listen to, I think he has an interesting one. Maybe we should link it in the show notes.
His interview The Way of the Runner, his own.
No, his interview with Eliud Kipchoge.
Oh, he doesn't need us to publicize his interview with Eliud Kipchoge.
But it's not
publicizing our. We need the publicity. He doesn't need the publicity.
Yeah, but the publicity. The publicity is not for him. It's just to make things easier for our listeners, that they can,
why not,
have something else to listen to. I don't know. I'll try and find it.
It's all good stuff.
All good stuff. I mean, you can never listen to too many podcasts, right?
Talking about linking links, I noticed that you linked the link to one of the races that I was talking about when we were discussing our final book. How She Did It, by Molly Huddle and Sara Slattery. Did you link the race that I was raving about during the discussion?
I thought I was doing a public service there, so.
That was excellent. Thank you for that. I actually clicked on it and looked at it again. It's such a fantastic race.
That's great. So if nobody else clicked on it,
if no one else uses it,
you benefited from that.
Yeah.
Thanks. Which brings us to our last book, I guess.
Yeah, How She Did It.
How She Did It.
Huddle and Sara Slattery. That was a lot of fun. talking with those two ladies.
It was, yeah. And it was great to hear what the criteria was for including athletes in their book. And one of the criteria was the longevity in the sport. I mean, some of these athletes, had been running for like over 2 decades. I mean, competing at a high level for over 2 decades, which, in some professional sports, I mean, you do have athletes that that compete for a long time, like the tennis player. Was it Roger Federer? Is that his name? Yeah, I'm not really a tennis follower, but he's had a super long career, and that's the only reason why I know his name, was because I think it's probably repetition, because he's had a really long career. The other thing is that they all had setbacks and they all trained through plateaus. So it's just the perseverance.
I think we mere mortals sometimes look at superstars and go, oh, well, they've had it, they're genetically gifted, and so they've had an easy ride to the top. Because as one of the ladies pointed out to us, I can't remember whether it was Molly or Sara, what we see from the outside is we see the things that are most public, and the things that are most public are their successes. So if they break a world record, or they come first in a major race, or they win an Olympic medal, those are the things that come straight into your memory. And you have a tendency to just join those dots, when in fact, none of the athletes are like that. In between times, they have injuries or self-doubt problems, or...
And also sometimes we just, we don't see them for a while, and we think like, oh, well, like maybe, I don't know, maybe they're not doing any races. But usually it's just because we're not hearing about them, because they're not as publicized when they are doing a comeback from injury race and they come 10th, let's say, or maybe they do a smaller race, or they do a track race.
You only hear them being coming back from injury when they recover, win a race or win a medal, and they get interviewed and said, oh yeah, I've been struggling with injury over the last 9 months. Of course, if they don't win the race, you never hear that, because they never do the interview. I guess I've kind of assumed that people know what How She Did It is about, because it was basically our last podcast before this one. But we should probably just mention, for people who didn't listen to that episode, how dare you not listen to that episode? Click on it now.
You have to go back. Now you have to go back and listen.
It's basically about promoting the success stories around women's running, rather than hear about the terrible things that have happened with some women recently, the Mary Kane story and etc. To give examples where women runners have overcome difficulties and been successful. And there are 50 interviews in the book. We found out that they did about 80 interviews, but there are 50 interviews in the book with endurance running superstars of various walks, various descriptions, various distances and capabilities. And there's a section at the beginning about advice on healthy running as a female runner from specific experts.
Yeah, and it's meant to help, like, new runners that are maybe in high school, or maybe just starting college, and in that developmental stage. So just to keep themselves healthy, and so that they can have these long careers, just like these women in the book had. Then there is a few things at the end. There's like a section called the cool down, and there's one story that's a pretty good one. It's Edna Kiplagat at the 2010 LA Marathon. So the LA Marathon has kind of like a sub race in the elite race, where they let the women go off first, and they calculate a delay for the men to go off, and it's supposed to kind of equalize them. So by the end, they're racing each other to have an overall winner, either a female or a male. And so she actually she ended up winning her the female race. But apparently before the race, her husband was also running, and he was also like kind of vying for gold. And so they had a bet between themselves before the race.
Who would finish the line, cross the line first?
Yeah, he would finish first. And if she wins, her husband had to pay for a vacation. And if he wins, then she had to pay for dinner, which I don't know if that was very fair, but whatever, they agreed. And finally she won. So he had to pay for a vacation.
It's a pretty nice story. There are some great stories in there, and great representations. For fear of repeating myself, I think I said that my favorite story that I came across was the performance of Kim Connolly when she qualified for the Olympics at the 5,000 meters in 2012 at Eugene, Oregon, by coming simultaneously third in the race. So she became a qualifier, and she also, during that race, had to run the A standard qualifying time, despite the commentators writing her off and writing everybody off and saying it was too slow, they wouldn't reach the time, and never mentioning her in the race. She came storming around towards the end and just nipped in and managed to nip into third place and also qualify the A standard by about 0.2 of a second or something ridiculous. So she snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. And the little video that's linked in the notes is well worth a look.
Alan, should I link it for you in these notes as well, or it's okay in just the other notes?
I think I have it permanently now on my on my taskbar.
Okay, you bookmarked it?
Yeah.
It pops up in your favorites now every time you try and open a new web page.
Fantastic stuff.
That's the 10 books. And yeah, they were good ones. I still can't believe we've read another 10 books.
Yeah. Well, are you getting bored? 60 books now we've read?
Absolutely not.
No, I agree.
We're just getting started.
Yeah, in many ways, I'm more enthusiastic now than I was when we began.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great way for people to fuel their own running. You know, if you're a little bit not really motivated, and grab a book or listen to one of our podcasts. There's something in everything you read and everything you listen to there that you can extract a little piece of information. The number of people I've spoke to in our club who, now that we're regular established podcasters, quite a few people listening to them, the number of people I've spoken to where they said, "Oh, you said this in your podcast and I remembered it and I did this and it was kind of cool." And I go, "Oh, did I really?" Oh, or sometimes it's you. So I say, "Oh, did she really?" I don't have any recollection of it, but people are.
I guess we say a lot of things.
Yeah, we do.
Can't remember everything we say.
No, some of it's obviously sensible.
Mm-hmm.
That must be
it's a good thing we record these.
Okay, so anything else to add? Just that if people want specific types of books or us to cover books, I've had a couple of notes from people, but feel free to send us a message somewhere on social media. It's nice to receive those, and we reply to everything. We don't get that much, so it's easy for us to reply to everything.
It is, and we like doing it.
Sure. So thank you for listening to another episode of Running Book Reviews. If you'd like to leave us feedback on how we can improve the podcast or want to suggest a book that you'd like us to review, just like I've said, please leave us a comment on social media. We are Running Book Reviews on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter, we are reviews_running. Please be sure to follow us to find out about new episodes when they're released, or you can just subscribe to the podcast on your favorite streaming platform. If you've been listening for a while and are wondering how you can help us out, there are a couple of ways. If you enjoy the podcast, spread the word. Tell your friends about us or share a link of your favorite episode with a running partner. Also, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate reviews. Obviously, if you're listening to the podcast on Apple, you can leave a review there, or you can leave us a rating of stars on Spotify. We are also on a platform called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can go and buy us a coffee, so to speak, or you don't have to buy us a coffee. You can just go on and look at some outtakes and extras that we've posted up on there if you haven't already had more than your fill of running book reviews. So that's all for us for now. Looking forward to speaking to you again soon for another episode, and bye for now. Bye.
Bye.